Okay, so today we're going to go over the Omakase Pension Alternative program by Lionsmark Capital. And the genesis of this program really started from some feedback we were getting from the field, from agents and advisors that liked a different program that was being marketed by a competitor of ours in the premium financing space. I won't name the name, but I'm sure you'll know who I'm talking about. They have a fixed annual outlay for the client, typically over a period of 10 years. They are accruing interest. They're using high early cash value riders. In some of these programs, the policies are actually owned in a trust along with a pool of other policies that they enter into this trust in tranches. That program has a number of drawbacks, some of which I just alluded to, and the client has a lack of control over the policy, and there's just a number of variables that we just found being very unnecessary and introducing elements of risk into the overall strategy. However, I do understand the agent's affinity towards having a simple program where they can tell a client that they have a fixed outlay over a certain number of years. So I totally understand that. Because we all know that premium financing can be complex depending on the advisor that is articulating how the program works, and also depending on the sophistication of the client. So I've seen a lot of times the clients will be explained how premium financing works, and they just look like a deer in the headlights. And usually when the client looks like a deer in the headlights, they do nothing, right? So, and quite frankly, I've seen a lot of advisors also look like a deer in the headlights when we start talking about premium financing, and those advisors also do nothing. And so we want to make a program that was simple in its design, that was easy for an advisor to explain to a client on a first meet, and at the same time, not putting the client in harm's way where too much risk is introduced. So what we wanted to do from a marketing standpoint is similar to when you see like a duck swimming peacefully on a pond. Above the water, we see the duck looking very graceful and kind of smooth and gliding over the water surface. And under the water, that duck's working its butt off, right? So it's kind of like in premium financing, from a marketing perspective, if you can make the design and the concept simple enough for the client to understand, they don't necessarily need to know the intimate details of all the work we do behind the scenes in terms of underwriting and policy design, et cetera, et cetera. Now, that being said, if the client wants to know the intimate details, we can really get into the granular explanation of what is happening in our premium financing design. We can show them how the index credits work, how the charges work, where the liabilities are. We can stress test the heck out of it and show them all kinds of volatility with S&P returns and poor sequences of returns, and we can show them all of that. But sometimes the client just wants to understand the general concept. And so sometimes for a client like that, the Omakase Pension Alternative plan is going to be the perfect plan for them due to its simplicity in terms of the design. So sometimes, from a marketing perspective, less is more. And many times a master in a particular industry keeps things very, very simple. For example, I don't know if you've seen this documentary on Netflix, but it's called Jiro Dreams of Sushi. And it's about a sushi master in Japan who has a 10-seat bar in the subway station in Tokyo. To get a reservation at Jiro's restaurant, you can only telephone call in. There are no walk-ins, and typically it's about an 8-month waiting list just to get a reservation. Jiro is one of the few sushi masters that is Michelin rated. In fact, he received 3 Michelin stars. He's not a spring chicken either. At the time, I believe he was 85 years old when they shot the documentary. But when you watch this documentary, it is just a fascinating story about a master in his craft that has just obsessed about getting it right. Now, in Jiro's restaurant, you can only order omakase style. So the origin of the word omakase is a Japanese term, and it's used only in very, very high-end sushi restaurants. And the definition of omakase is the decision to respectfully defer to another to decide what is best. And so when you eat omakase style in a sushi establishment, essentially what you're doing is you are relinquishing all control to the master sushi chef. You don't ask for extra wasabi. You don't ask for the dish to be altered in any way. You are literally deferring all control to the master to develop the perfect dining experience. And so that's what we have done with our Omakase Pension Alternative program. We have packaged one of our premium financing programs to be incredibly simple. So in the Omakase Pension Alternative program, we have fixed contributions for a period of 10 years with a minimum annual contribution of $50,000. In this premium financing arrangement, we have the client pay some of the annual premiums out of pocket, and some of the premiums are financed by a third-party lender. In this program, the payoff of the premium financing loan is always executed in year 11, and income drawdowns can start as early as year 12. So let's take a look at a case study here so you can see in action how this program works. In the top left-hand corner of the screen, we have $100,000 in annual contribution for a 10-year period. And in the first 2 years of the policy premiums are actually $100,000 in year 1 and year 2. Let me blow up the screen a little bit bigger so we can see it. Okay, here we go. So in years 1 and 2, the actual policy premiums are $100,000 in year 1 and 2. And so the $100,000 outlay is going to pay 100% of the premiums again in year 1 and year 2. Now, starting in year 3, we have policy premiums of $309,000. Now, some of those $309,000 in premiums are going to be paid out of pocket by the client from that $100,000 annual budget. And some of those premiums are going to be financed through a third-party lender, and the client will pay interest only on those loans. So as we see on the right-hand side of the screen, those are the projected interest payments due, and the remainder of that $100,000 annual budget will go directly towards paying premium. So we see in the earlier years when the cumulative loan balance is smaller, the interest due is obviously smaller, hence the remaining amount of that $100,000 annual budget will go towards paying the premium. So the way we would determine how much of that $100,000 budget is going towards interest versus paying the premiums is basically calculated by our software program. And so we have an algorithm that will calculate the allocation of that $100,000 annual budget that goes towards paying equity premiums into the policy versus borrowing premiums and using the remainder of that $100,000 annual budget to pay interest payments. Now, the next slide I'm going to show you here is really taking an internal look behind the kimono. The client is never going to see this process of how we design the policy, but for the sake of this webinar, I'm going to disclose to you how we make those calculations, just so you understand the design of the program. So again, in the top left-hand corner of the screen, we have the $100,000 annual budget, and that is in the column on the left-hand side, directly going towards paying the $100,000 annual premium. And again, we do this in year 1 and in year 2 of the policy. So we're not using any third-party premium financing capital to fund the policy for years 1 and year 2. That actually starts in year 3. So in year 3, our software program has calculated an annual premium of $309,360, again, an annual premium, funding the policy in years 3 through 10. Again, by design, this is the actual policy premium. It is not the premium paid out of pocket by the client, and it is not the interest payments on the premium finance loan. This is the actual policy premium. So, for example, in year 3 of the policy, with a $309,000 annual policy premium, we're going to calculate a hypothetical interest payment based on a hypothetical model where the client would borrow the entire $309,000 in premium. Now, based on this speculated borrowing rate, the hypothetical interest, again, this is for calculation purposes only, the interest payment would be $14,109. And that interest amount would be as if the client were going to borrow the full $309,360, which they are not. So there's a reason why we do this calculation that I will explain in just a moment. So our software system is going to take that speculated hypothetical $14,109 in interest payment and subtract that from the $100,000 annual budget, which would leave $85,891 that would go towards paying the actual policy premium. So by design, the client's $100,000 annual budget is going to fund the $85,000 in premium paid out of pocket, which again leaves $14,109 to pay the interest payment. And those two numbers combined make up the $100,000 annual budget. The next calculation that our software program will do is take that $85,891 in premium paid out of pocket and subtract that from the $309,360 in actual policy premium, which is going to equal $223,469. Again, those two numbers added together make up the $309,360 in actual policy premium. The $223,469 is going to be the actual cumulative loan balance in that third year. Again, that's the actual policy premium minus the $85,000 in out-of-pocket premium paid from the $100,000 annual budget. So if we take the $223,469 in actual loan balance, that number is the number that the client would pay the actual interest out of pocket from that $100,000 annual budget. And so the actual interest paid by the client in that year would be $10,192. So remember, initially we budgeted $14,109 for the interest payment, which was intentionally greater than the $10,192 of actual interest that would be paid out of that $100,000 annual budget, which means that at the end of the year, there is an extra $3,900 left over. So from a logistical standpoint, the client would pay the $100,000 in annual payment to the lender. It would sit in a checking account with the lender. The lender then would use $85,891 of that $100,000 account and apply that towards the actual policy premium. And in addition, they would finance the $223,000 in remaining premium and send a total of $309,360 off to the carrier, because that is the actual policy premium. They will also use the remaining balance in that account and draw down the $10,192 in annual interest, and they'll take that drawdown from that account monthly. So at the end of the year, that account is going to have a balance of $3,917. The next year, in policy year 4, that $3,917 is going to be applied towards the actual out-of-pocket premium paid by the client, in addition to the premium paid from the new $100,000 annual budget that's being loaded into that account. So this process is going to continue in policy years 3 through 10. And as you see in the bottom right-hand corner of the grid, at the end of year 10, based on this budget, that holding account would have a positive balance of $36 in the very end, which means that the $100,000 annual budget over that 10-year period was enough to fund the out-of-pocket premiums paid and the interest due each year for that period of 10 years. Now, as we see here, kind of in the middle in the green section here, the premium financing loan is going to be paid off in full. That's that $2,088,953. That's going to be paid off from the cash value of the policy in year 11. And starting in year 12, the income drawdowns would start, assuming this is a LIRP design, or a life insurance retirement plan design, focused on accumulation and then income drawdowns. So again, if we look at the policy design, I'm going to drop down that first section up there on the left-hand corner side. Again, that shows you the $100,000 annual budget for a period of 10 years. One column over from that, we have the actual policy premium design of the $100,000 in policy year 1 and year 2, and then $309,000 in annual policy premium in years 3 through 10. And then the actual outlay for the client is the $85,000 in change in out-of-pocket premiums paid and the $223,000 in change of premiums borrowed from the third-party lender. You add those two numbers together, and that comes out to the $309,360 in actual policy premiums, again, in years 3 through 10. And so our software will automatically calculate year after year after year what amounts of that $309,000 in actual policy premium is going to come from that $100,000 annual client budget versus from the third-party lender capital. So again, the Omakase Pension Alternative program, we have fixed contributions for a period of 10 years. The other nice thing about this is because the client is paying the first 2 years in premium out of pocket, using that, in this case, $100,000 annual budget, again in years 1 and year 2, there is no need for them to post any outside collateral. And the reason is because you have the first 2 years in premium being paid out of pocket, it gives the policy cash value a nice running head start. In other words, we're getting more equity into the policy up front in the first 2 years. So starting in year 3 of the policy, when we start introducing some lender capital, the cumulative loan balance is going to be substantially less than the policy cash surrender value at that point. So there is no gap collateral needed in addition to the policy. The policy is the sole collateral. And because the policy is the sole collateral, there's no need for the client to sign a personal guarantee on that loan either, which is extremely valuable to the client. In addition, unlike some of our competitors' programs that have these fixed annual contributions, the Omakase program does not accrue any interest. So with no interest accrual, it really de-risks the program for the client compared to some of our competitors' fixed contribution programs. In the Omakase program, there are no high early cash value riders needed, which ultimately is going to give the client a much better cash value performance. And as we discussed earlier, there are no pooling of policies. In one of our competitors' programs, they pool multiple policies together inside a trust. So the client really technically does not own or control their policy until the third-party loan is paid off in full. In the Omakase program, these are all individually owned policies. They can own them in their own trust. They can own them in their own LLC or whatever entity they prefer, which gives the client much more control. And lastly, they can participate in the Omakase program for as little as a $50,000 annual contribution. Again, that is over a period of 10 years. So with all these client benefits, it really makes no sense to entertain any of these other programs where the client loses control of the policy and the cash value doesn't perform as well. From a client standpoint, this is a much cleaner and simpler and less risky program. And for the advisor, the targets are substantially higher than some of these other programs out there because we're not using high early cash value riders. You're getting heap comp as opposed to spread comp, which means that there are no extended chargeback windows like there are in some of these other programs. I mean, it is just a much simpler, superior design program compared to, again, some of those other programs out there for both the client and the advisor. So again, here is the illustration. Again, we've got a fixed $100,000 annual contribution for a period of 10 years. The lender loan is paid off in year 11, and then the client starts income drawdowns in year 12. Now, what we're looking at on the screen here is part of our software program's capability of being able to backtest the financed policy. Here we're looking at the last 40 years of S&P performance from 2018 rolling back to 1979. That is in this kind of light green shaded column here. The middle of that light shaded green column are the S&P returns in those corresponding years, not including S&P dividends. And in the right-hand column here, we're using an IUL from a carrier that has a 0% floor and a 9.5% cap. And in this particular example, we are using a participating loan to pay off the premium financing loan, and the $120,000 of annual income stream we have pulling out of the policy, we are also using participating loans. Now, our software program can model the premium financing loan being paid off using a withdrawal as opposed to a par loan. And we can also model the income stream coming out using fixed loans as opposed to par loans. And that's really up to what the client and or the advisor would like to see modeled. Our software program can show both of those models on the spot, on the fly, at point of sale, simply by selecting either a fixed loan or a par loan from a drop-down menu within our software program. So that's one of the nice things about working with Lionsmark Capital when you use us at point of sale, is we're able to make a lot of those adjustments right there on the fly, on the spot, so that the client can see everything in real time, as opposed to having the client request a different scenario, and then you've got to go back to your office, then you got to call us, then have us run a completely different proposal, and all of a sudden, 27 proposals, and 27 weeks later, the client doesn't even remember how to spell premium financing. So it's much more efficient to have us do point of sale with you and have that client ask those questions and make those requests to see different scenarios right there on the spot. And again, our software program allows us to be able to do that. Now, in addition to those features, what we're looking at here, again, is the value of accumulation and then liquidation in terms of policy drawdowns for income. I mean, I think this looks fantastic, but the real question is, fantastic compared to what? And so we always model the accumulation and income comparison to a logical alternative. And the logical alternative would be some sort of managed investment account. So let me pull this up here. What we have here is a hypothetical managed investment account. Across the top there, those are all manual inputs. So we'll ask the client what they would like to see modeled. We're using a 60-40 equity to bond ratio within this portfolio up until age 55, and then starting at age 56, it flips the other way, 40% equities, 60% bonds. This particular case, the client was making a little over $500,000 in income. They live in the state of Colorado, and so their short-term capital gains tax rate is 48.10%, and their long-term cap gains tax rate is 33.10%. They want to see half of their equities being taxed at short-term and half of their equities being taxed at long-term capital gains tax. They said that they were paying an advisor fee of 50 basis points, which is pretty darn low, and that 50 basis point advisor fee calculated out to be a 1.35% all-in investment fee. So what we do, in, again, the top-hand left corner of the screen, we have the same annual outlay that was going into the Omakase plan, and we have that same $100,000 outlay being contributed or invested in this hypothetical managed investment account. Again, that was $100,000 per year for a period of 10 years. And as you see on the right side of the screen, we start to draw the same $120,000 in income starting in year 12. And because of the volatility and the tax drag and the investment fee drag in the managed investment account, we see the managed investment account being drawn down to zero and be completely depleted. So if you're having a discussion with the client about using this as either an accumulation tool and or an income source, the burning question that the client really wants to know is this a good deal, right? Should I do this? And again, there has to be some sort of frame of reference to be able to answer the question, is it good compared to what? And so typically the comparison, the logical comparison, is going to be to compare it to some sort of equity/bond account that they're currently investing their money in. And so we can custom design a hypothetical managed investment account to mirror what that logical alternative would be. And that's what we're looking at right here on the screen. In summary, when we look at the side-by-side comparison here, again, we have the same $100,000 in annual outlay over a 10-year period into both sides. So $1 million in contribution over a period of 10 years going both into the Omakase Premium Financing Program as well as the Managed Investment Account. Obviously, one of the perks to the Omakase plan is it is a life insurance policy, right? So there's a huge value to having a $4.8 million face amount, whereas with the non-life insurance investment account, there's obviously no death benefit. When we look at the ability to draw income down, the Omakase Pension Alternative Program, we're able to draw down $3.48 million in total income, whereas the non-life insurance managed investment account, we are only able to draw down $2.26 million in income before the account goes down to zero. Whereas in the Omakase plan, even after drawing down $3.48 million in income, there is still an additional $2.48 million in cash surrender value net of all loans by year 40. So look at the difference between the total economic benefit of the Omakase plan, that's $5.96 million, versus the non-life insurance investment account at only $2.26 million in total economic benefit. And then you can also look at the total IRR, dollars in versus dollars out and retained. 8.08% net IRR in the Omakase plan and only 5.66% net in the non-life insurance investment account. And just for visual representation, we see here on this next screen here, on the left-hand side is a line graph that shows the account balance over a 40-year period. The green line is the Omakase Premium Finance Plan. The blue line is the non-life insurance investment account. As we see there, it gets drawn down to zero by year 30. And on the right-hand side of the screen is a bar graph. The red bars represent the total outlay contributed into each plan. Obviously, that's the same amount. That's $100,000 per year for 10 years. So $1 million going into each plan. And the economic benefit in the Omakase Premium Financing Plan in the green is obviously substantially more than the non-life insurance investment account, which is in the blue. So in summary, the Omakase Pension Alternative Plan is just built for simplicity's sake. Again, we have a 10-year fixed contribution with a minimum annual contribution of $50,000. It can be $100,000, it can be $200,000, it could be $1 million, it can be whatever it is that suits that client. But having that fixed annual contribution for a fixed period, certain period of time, is just really nice from a simplicity standpoint. We always show a loan payoff in year 11, and income drawdowns can start as early as year 12. So if you're looking for a more simple to explain premium financing program where the goal is accumulation and eventually retirement income drawdowns, the Omakase Pension Alternative Program might be the perfect fit for you. So for more information, you can go to our website. We are at Lionsmark We have tons of videos that you can use for marketing purposes. You can send your clients links to those videos to expose them to different types of lending programs that we have. We have live seminars that have been video recorded and posted on that site, as well as recordings of live webinars. And you can also click on Contact Us and send us a direct message to set up an introductory phone call so that we can get to know each other a little bit better and see if it makes sense to do business together. And once we're able to spend that time together and we can take you through our entire program and answer all the questions that you have, we always say the only regret you're going to have is that you didn't start doing premium financing cases with us sooner. So again, my name is Darren Sugiyama. I'm one of the managing partners of Lionsmark Capital. Again, go to lionsmarkcapital.com, click on Contact Us, and I look forward to meeting you personally in the very near future. Talk to you soon.